Imagine this. A single signature can change the trajectory of millions of lives and reshape the business of war for the entire planet. Whether it's the ink drying on a Gaza ceasefire deal or the sudden cancellation of a summit in Budapest, the consequences ripple across the world, quietly enriching those who thrive on instability: arms dealers, multinational investors, shadowy intermediaries. Today in APT Opinion, we are diving deep into these hidden mechanisms. We are peeling back the layers to show how governments speak of peace, but their policies, their hesitations, their very inaction often fuel conflict, and how corporations, contractors, and even private actors profit when everyone else pays the cost. Take October 2025 and the Gaza ceasefire. Headlines hailed the agreement as a victory for diplomacy. But behind the scenes, the global arms industry reacted like a market responding to a sudden shockwave. Years of relentless conflict had turned Gaza into a proving ground for drones, smart bombs, precision-guided munitions, and air defense systems. So what happened? Contracts were cancelled, missile orders paused, governments across the EU, France, Spain, Britain revoked agreements with Israeli manufacturers like Elbit Systems and Aeronautics. On the surface, this looked like peace slowing the wheels of war. Yet peace does not mean profit stops. Shipping giants and global energy players immediately recalibrated as trade routes through the Red Sea reopened. Logistics companies saw the potential for supernormal profits: higher throughput, faster delivery, lower costs. But arms vendors with heavy export reliance felt the tremor. And while the demand for weapons dipped momentarily, the industry quickly pivoted. Humanitarian security, border control, counterinsurgency. The language of necessity becomes the language of profit. Old conflicts may fade, but the appetite for new theaters of tension never ends. Then, in another theater of war, came the abrupt cancellation of the Budapest summit. On paper, it was a diplomatic hiccup. In reality, it exposed fragilities in European arms and energy markets. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio's decision to call off the summit over disagreements on Russian sanctions sent shockwaves through planned contracts. European arms manufacturers, already navigating volatile energy markets, scrambled. Poland, Finland, the Baltics, they all suddenly eyed emergency procurements, weapon systems, and drone technology. The US, meanwhile, was sitting in the driver's seat. Advanced Tomahawk missile deliveries for Ukraine were blocked by Trump's administration, ensuring that American defense giants from Raytheon to Lockheed Martin would dominate both the immediate and secondary markets. Russia, isolated and sanctioned, funneled resources into missile and drone development, chasing technological parity. The cycle of tension and profit spun on, invisible to the casual observer, but crystal clear to investors and contractors. And then, the world watched as President Trump ordered airstrikes against alleged drug trafficking vessels from Venezuela and Colombia, the first public US combat airstrikes in South America since 1989. Officially, the target was narco-trafficking, but geopolitically, it was a display of power aimed at Beijing, Moscow, and the region at large. For the arms industry, this was a jackpot. Fast response naval platforms, surveillance drones, strike aircraft, counter-cartel weaponry all received new attention, new funding. Raytheon and Lockheed Martin engineers suddenly found themselves with new R&D contracts, while foreign buyers in Brazil, Trinidad, Puerto Rico scrambled for advanced anti-smuggling tech. Venezuela, meanwhile, lost more than vessels. It became further isolated from global arms markets. Follow the money, and a clear picture emerges. US and European defense conglomerates, Raytheon, Boeing, Airbus, BAE Systems, benefited from every skirmish, every strike, and every failed peace negotiation. Share prices spiked, Contracts surged. Emergency credits, asset transfers from sanctioned states, and inflated energy revenues fueled a cycle of profit that few outside boardrooms saw. Israel, meanwhile, pivoted hard towards Asia and Africa after European cancellations, courting new buyers in India, the Philippines, and Nigeria, all seeking anti-insurgency or border security technology. Russia, constrained by sanctions, leaned on clandestine trade with partners like China, Iran, and North Korea. Every barrier erected by the West funneled funds back into Moscow's war machine, inflating costs for the rest of the world while keeping domestic production humming. The patterns repeat globally. East Asia has accelerated indigenous arms programs. China, South Korea, Japan, they're all hedging against US dominance and Russian isolation. South America, reeling from embargoes and strikes, navigates an arms vacuum, modernizing quietly to deter both criminal insurgencies and foreign interventions. Africa and the Middle East are being courted aggressively by China and Russia with no-strings deals, while US and European companies push high-tech packages under the guise of humanitarian or defensive needs. And here's the question we must ask ourselves: who really controls war? And who controls peace? Political crises spark arms purchases. Arms purchases embolden risky moves. Risky moves provoke new crises. Governments speak of diplomacy and dialogue, but contracts are signed, stocks rise, and profits accumulate, often before the headlines hit. Who decides which innovations are defensive and which are offensive? Are drone swarms patrolling borders or breaking them? Ceasefires, cancelled summits, presidential strikes, these are the drama, the spectacle. Behind them, deals are signed, fortunes change hands, and the next crisis looms. The arms industry doesn't just react to instability, it anticipates it, capitalizes on it, and often fuels it. As of October 2025, every global event is a reminder. Peace and conflict are intertwined with profit. The balance sheets tell a story that headlines often obscure. And the public? We face hard questions. Will government serve citizens or contractors? Will new weapon technologies become easier to deploy and harder to regulate? Can we break the cycle of war for profit? Or have we accepted it as the new normal? For now, the industry marches on. Ceasefires fade, summits fail, strikes occur. But somewhere between the drama and the dollars, the future is being written. And the question remains, what kind of world do we, as a global public, want to inherit? And what will we demand from those who profit while the rest of us pay? This is APT Opinion, but we want to know what you think. Comment, share, and stay with us as we connect the dots between the headlines, the hidden profits, and the real drivers of global conflict.